This is what we're working on today. We are going to take a 2005 Escalade with a factory Bose, and we are going to update it to a Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sony touchscreen deck. The screen is about the same size as the OEM because it did come with the navigation, but obviously is missing the new features. And then with it, we've got a backup camera, which the vehicle has never had. We have the dash installation kit, so it'll adapt. We've got one wiring harness, two wiring harness. I believe this, because the wires all need to be attached, is the stereo. And then this is everything else. This is like OnStar steering wheel controls. We've got a antenna adapter, chime module, OnStar interface. This is a 6-disc changer delete. Obviously, we're not going to keep the disc player and plug it back in because there's no point when we have Apple Music, Spotify, and Prime Music. So we have all the music ever made. So we're going to remove the disc changer and turn that into storage. The older vehicles had narrow center consoles, as I'm sure many remember. So this is going to give us a bonus storage. The USB port on the back of the stereo, there's not one on the face, which I'm fine with. But we wanted to do something clean, so I'm going to drill a hole, and we are going to run this through the empty plate above the traction control, which we will talk about once we get out there. We've got wire connectors. I got two sizes because I tend to run blue, but maybe it's too big because we're running some pretty fine wires for stereo stuff. Then we've got, I think, 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch, two 10-foot rolls of shrink wrap, heat gun, fancy Milwaukee wire strippers, a normal pair of scissors for cutting the shrink wrap if these kind of butcher, because sometimes it just doesn't do what you anticipated. The Milwaukee radio. This is a job site standard for those of you that don't know. It just does. Every site that's being worked on needs a Milwaukee stereo of some capacity, and that is mine. So that is an overview of what we're working with. I'm going to wire this to the backside of the digital receiver for the dash inside, because it is -10 out right now and quite windy. So I'm going to do as much indoors as I can before I have to go out and start pulling trim. I am also installing a subwoofer, which was the subwoofer out of the Camaro. I just gave up on it. The new cars are just too difficult to tap into, and the bass signal is just, it's just not worth the amount of energy that was going to be required for me to actually fix it. So this is what we're looking at. I'm going to get to some wiring, and then in a little bit, we will be out in the vehicle. Got the majority of our connections done at this point. It is color to color. It's pretty straightforward. I got to figure out the navigation outputs, the brake, and then reverse in. I'm not sure what these particular ones are. This is for the chime, but everything else is connected. Left speaker, right speaker, front, back, rear, all power, remote, turn on line, all the fundamentals are done. So I wanted to stop for a moment and share with you a few things I've learned along the way, because building RVs for 11 years, we installed hundreds of stereos, but I didn't have a wiring harness. I had a piece like this that came out of a stereo, and all of this part I had to create. I had to run the wires for the speakers and everything else I created, and then put it all together. But there's a lot of little things we had to do in order to ensure longevity. We use these inline connectors a lot. They are coated in plastic, and it's very, very hard to see, but it doesn't make a complete circle. There is a break in it. So what I did, and what I do every time I fuse them, is I take where the brake is right on the top there, because I've cut the coating off of this one, so it runs right up the top there. And that's where I line up the top indent on the tool. So this side here goes on there, right? You line it up, you crimp it with the wire in, and then when you remove it, it should look like this. So it actually folds the top over like this, creates a thing like this, like it comes around and it pinches the wires. And then I take and I give every single one a good tug. I want to make sure that I've stress tested it, and whatever could happen once it's been heated and cooled 500 times or whatever, like these connections won't fail and this won't be the weak link before I shrink wrap them. So there's also a tube of shrink wrap on every single one, which I've already shrink wrapped here. I just did one quick one just to have an example. So I've built in redundancy on my redundancy on top of checking and proofing all of my work before it goes in the vehicle and before I have to come back later and figure out what I did. Again, completely up to you, but this is just stuff that's lasted decades on the road after untold amounts of abuse. So I'm gonna keep doing it my way because it seems to work really, really well. So on to the next part. We have made some pretty substantial progress. Everything is plugged in on the back of the deck except for the subwoofer. We'll figure that out. It's I've electrical taped all these together. I did have to connect the positive negative from here onto the positive negative on here. Apparently you're supposed to do something and get the deck in before you plug this one in, which is right here. But yeah, it's coming along quite well. I'm pretty excited about it. So it's time to start ripping the vehicle apart, fish the hard stuff, which would be the backup cam, and the subwoofer wires, which I have to go dig out and make sure will work. To end up ripping this apart again. We haven't figured out how to get the steering wheel controls working, even though there's a module that is supposed to be plug and play. I may have done something wrong, I don't know, but I gotta tear that apart and figure it out. The 6-disc changer down here is also coming out. That will become a cubby. As mentioned, there's not a lot of storage in here, so any addition will be very welcomed. But it does work. Bluetooth sounds great. The Apple CarPlay is not working. It says incompatible device. So I don't know if it needs to be updated because I have an iPhone 12 and this deck is from 2018. So I guess the deck's not from 2018, but that's when it was built. So I got a little bit of tinkering to do, but the deck is in and it works and it sounds good. And installation was very easy. Love these old cars that just pop apart. Until next time, drive safe, take care, and behave, as always.